Okay, hour two, Kirk and Callahan. I'm back. Jerry's here. Mutt's here. Maybe we'll get Ken back next week. I was scheduled to be in last Friday. I was scheduled to be off Monday, Tuesday, in Wednesday, Thursday. I think today as well. I was not. So I guess anybody who listens to the show, we joke around about it all the time. Jerry makes fun of me for it, and he'll continue to do it because that's what friends do, and I want that. Believe me, that's going to continue. I have had mental health issues in the past and depression that I was hospitalized for a couple of times in my senior year in high school for a while. And they've been up and down here, in my life. It's just the life of somebody who has depression, which is a real thing and an illness like anything else. I'd say in the past year or so, particularly following the death of my parents, I've had a hard time, if not handled it well. I think in the past year, particularly over the last couple of months, it's really accelerated to a point that it's never been before and really bubbled up, I would say, even more so over the last 3 weeks, 4 weeks, to the point where really for the first time in my life, I started having what I guess is termed suicidal thoughts. And the way it manifested itself for me was I think I hid the fact that I was thinking about doing it by pretending in a weird way like I was almost doing research on it. Or if you, Jerry, or you, Mutt, or Mike, handed me almost came up to me and said, listen, I'm going to commit suicide on day X. I'd like you to put together the plan for me. That's how I started to think about it. I read books. I went online. And if you want to go online for it, it's like anything else, a rabbit hole that never ends. Figured the safest way to do it, the least safe way to do it, the way to do it that may not look like you're actually doing it, the history of it, the percentages of success, the percentages of failure, and landed for some reason on trains. I got sort of focused on trains. And there's a commuter rail, obviously, there's a bunch of them. There's a commuter rail that goes from Lowell to North Station, you know it, and stops a couple of times in Winchester. Winchester Center to Wedgmere, which is like a mile, if that, and doesn't pick up the kind of speed that would do the required damage. However, the one from Wedgmere to Medford would, and I began to look at that. I went on the train a few times that way, tested it out, then would sort of walk a couple of times, walk the route. And there's, sort of a woodsy thing, so I'd sort of hide and whatever. And the day, last Thursday, I went the middle of the day to take a look and watch it go by and said, okay, well, there's a 7:56, I want to say, is when it was arriving in West Medford, and 8 o'clock or 8:02 at Wedgmere. And said, I'm going to go. And again, I was lying to myself, I think, and saying that, I'm just going to go look. I'm going to look. I'm going to look. I'm going to look. I was thinking about it. And there I was, at 8 o'clock-ish, right before, wandering around the Wedgmere train station, going around the parking lot, kind of walk around the field around there. And right a few minutes before, I stood in front of my car and I said, I don't want to do this. I don't want to die. But I know I don't want to die. But I also know this thing in my head that keeps talking about this and saying, examine this and look at this and look at this, and the word suicide. And the fact that how I felt internally, and I felt for the past couple of weeks like I was having a heart attack almost all the time. I was having a hard time breathing. And I was also playing this character, on the air, who was feeling good, and around my family who was feeling good, and talking to my brothers who was feeling good, and joking and doing that. Meanwhile, sort of dying on the inside. I said, I simply cannot live like this anymore. I have to give over. I have to give up whatever power I have. And I drove the car to Winchester Hospital and walked up to the emergency room people and a woman and said, I'm having very dangerous thoughts. And that was the beginning of, 5 days of hospitalization between Winchester that overnight and McLean for 4 nights where, I went in and I feel a little better now. I feel cathartic being able to tell my wife and my family and my friends that I was going through this. And there was a burden that I didn't handle well. And in this last year, just between, my parents and honestly, B, the thing that's, and I have to get past it, I don't know why I've been so hyper-focused on it, is this guy who's been, trying to bring down our show, honestly, and I've not handled that well. I should just say this is a bad guy who's trying to screw with us, but I think the anger I have still about my parents is kind of unresolved and all that stuff. I've festered that and allowed myself to sort of get hyper-focused on this person who's not worth a second of my time, and I will never be bothered with him again. He can do what he wants to do, and I just have to move on. I have to stop getting worked up about stuff like that. I have a great life. I have a great family. I have a great job. I work with people who I love. I love Jerry. I love Mutt. I love Ken. Curtis works here. I love him too. And I have to, move past all that stuff. And, this is a real thing. And I'm not embarrassed or ashamed about suffering from depression. I think I kind of was in the past. I joke around about it, but I felt emasculated by it. I don't anymore. I'm not going to do that anymore. I'm happy that I'm here and I'm going to be here, and I'm going to have down times too. The important thing for me, I think, is to recognize that I have these down times and tell people right away, as opposed to hiding it. It doesn't benefit me at all, and that all comes from childhood stuff like everything else. I have to figure that out. But right now I feel okay. I feel pretty good, but I think I have sort of a temporary high right now because I've been able to talk about it. 2 weeks from now, 3 weeks from now, I'm sure I won't feel great for a while, and I just have to be honest about it. But that's where I'm at, and I mean we could talk about the days in McLean, and that's what it is. You're inside the mental hospital, and there are people there who are really, 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 really sick. They stay in bed all day. They're upset about stuff. They're sort of stereotypical people you expect in those places, but they're sick, and it's a horrible mental illness, a horrible, horrible thing. It's as dangerous as anything else, more dangerous than anything else. Really leads to more deaths than anything else. So I'm just trying to figure it out and get my head around it, and I'm going to fight it, and that's where I'm at right now. So that's why I was out for the last couple of days, and so that's it. That's where I'm at.
Did you think of drinking or drugging at any point?
No, I didn't. Nope, I never do. That part of
my
life
is amazing to me. That takes real strength.
I think that part of my life is just gone. I don't have any desire to do it.
That's progress.
Yeah. No, I have no desire.
I'm sure
to
many of the people in McLean's with you are.
Yeah. That's a huge part of it.
That's why you had to blow into a straw.
Correct. Yeah, right. I got checked in too. So I checked myself in the Winchester, and you go into a separate wing. There's a security guard watching all the time. They take your shoelaces, they take your belt, they take your money clip, they take your phone, they take all this stuff. The security guy was a very nice guy, in his probably late 20s, early 30s, and I'm in there for about an hour or so, and I'm a mess. He comes up to me and shakes my hand. He's like, "I just want you to know I'm a big fan." I said, "Oh, thanks, okay." He's like, "I got to ask you a question." He's like, "What sport do I like?"
No.
But he was a nice guy. I said, he's a good guy. I don't know.
It's like with me. My car got totaled, and I was in a daze in the middle of the street, and a guy walked up and said, "How do you think the Red Sox are going to do?"
Right.
What?
Right.
A fair question at the time.
But that's good. I mean, I'm surprised that it's not a temptation at that point, just to ease the pain.
Not a temptation. Right. I could see why it would be. I have no desire to do that.
Good.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know. Maybe better if I did.
Well, and now you're actually on medication for the first time since I've known you.
Also that. I'm on a couple of medications right now. I'm on Lexapro, which I'm going to continue to take. And for a while, they had me on a very slight dosage of an antipsychotic medication, which is probably, I think appropriate.
I think they should up the dosage.
How long had you not been taking medication?
Years.
So it's been a long time, yeah.
Yeah.
You've talked about on the air, you feel sometimes different, that different edge to when you're not on medication.
Yeah, I just feel, I'm concerned. It's a weird thing. I'm concerned professionally that if I take enough medication, I'm going to lose what has made me successful professionally too. So I have to balance that, But it's obviously
you can do that.
I think so. And I think so. So I'm just going to. That's
look at Mutt. He balances his self-medication.
BCAAs, and yeah,
it's a good point.
But the thing that I will never understand, never be able to get my mind around, and every time I read about, Anthony Bourdain or Kate Spade, I wonder, when did you stop thinking of your kids? I mean, when
you don't. Well, you don't. I didn't. That's why I'm alive.
Good point. But they're not. They
right. I think. And I feel horrible for them. 10 years ago, I would have said they're selfish. They're not.
I wouldn't say that. I mean, the best explanation I heard, it was someone professional talking about Bourdain. It said, you don't think about anything but the pain, and this is the way to end it. End the pain.
I get it. I can just tell you from I've been down, never this down ever. And like the past few weeks, I totally, completely understand why people do that. I didn't. I elected not to. I'm lucky. I have a great support group, and I wasn't as mentally sick as those people. But I can tell you, I understand. I wouldn't have understood the thought even 3 months ago. As depressed as
Okay,
I've been.
dumb question. How can you do that to your kids?
You're sick. It's an illness.
I understand, but you're not like.
It's the same thing. Honestly, it's the same thing. I believe it's the same thing as if you had cancer and you had kids. You just die. You have kids. You don't want to lose them, but you lose them. It's an illness.
But that would be like if you stopped going to chemo.
But you're not. But I think killing yourself, you're mentally. I mean, look. I think we're talking about an imbalance. Like you're asking me to describe a chemical imbalance. I can't.
But I would think when you go to the train, the thing on your mind is Harry and Kate.
Yes, that's exactly what it was.
Then, and I agree.
That's why I didn't jump in front of it.
But some people do.
I think some people, Jerry, think that they're so bad, that they're so awful, they're so depressed that they think their kid's life would be better if they were gone. So in essence,
that doesn't work though, especially with a young kid.
No, but I do think for people who are really, and again, I just think there's just levels. I think you get to the point where you're so, and I like if I had gone home that night, and everyone was in Maine, I was alone. If I had gone home that night and tried to sleep and I would have cracked trying to go back to work the next day. I was at the point where I was like, I understand the mental breakdown. I was right there. And I get if I had been 10% worse, like I completely get it. I don't think Kate Spade, she had two kids? Kate Spade?
I forget.
Daughter.
Just a daughter?
Yeah, that's right, one daughter.
She was
young. The kid was young, like 14, 15.
She was thinking she was wrong, but she was thinking my kid's life would be better without me. Now, again, you're asking somebody who's mentally ill to think like they're not mentally ill.
But you're not only removing yourself from the equation, you're traumatizing that kid.
Right, but they're not thinking that.
Oh, obviously.
They're wrong. I mean, they're wrong.
I'm not judging, and I know that. I'm just saying I can't get my mind around it.
Oh, absolutely. It's not rational, but they're not in a position to be rational. Well, I think that's just what it is.
I'll ask my dumb question. How much of admitting it and showing up in McLean and starting to talk about this was part of what made you feel better now today?
A big part of it. That's what I said. Like right now, this is a temporary high. So I know when it gets, everyone's tweeting how wonderful you are and everyone's now great and you feel good and you feel unburdened. And then 3 weeks from now, when you start getting that feeling again in your stomach, well, then the question is, can I be honest and talk about it? Or am I going to lie to my family? Am I going to lie to my therapist, which I've done? I mean, you do this stuff where it's just you're afraid to talk about it, and I don't know why that is, but that's something I battle with. So I don't know. I don't know.
I mean, everyone's afraid to talk about something.
Yeah.
You're more open than most. You would agree with that.
Yes, but I don't like, when you're sort of, I think, there's a lot of it. When you're sort of now the oldest person in your side of the family and you've got kids and you're perceived as being, I think it's sometimes for me, it has been embarrassing to talk about the fact that I have this illness. Like it's almost like this sidekick that you're annoyed to have in your life. You just don't want to even deal with it anymore. But you have to. I have to. It's going to be with me for the rest of my life. For the next 3 weeks of my whole life.
Did you think when you went to when you went to McLean's?
Is that the fall book or no? Yeah.
Yes.
Only
Just wait
fair.
till the fall book.
That's the deal I'll make for you.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
Do it in the fall book, toward the end of the fall book, because I'd like to have you around for a while longer.
The Patriots ride a bump anyway.
Weather's better at the start of the fall book, though.
Well, you want good weather?
Well, you could take a week off to grieve.
Oh, that's true too. I forgot about that.
I'm trying
I could always go to Florida to visit Pete.
That's a good point. It's a good point.
But did you think when you went to McLean's it might be a longer term thing than whatever 5 days?
Yes. Well, no, I didn't think. Friday. I was overnight in Winchester and went there early. I was not thinking that it was going to be 3 weeks or three. I wasn't thinking anything. I didn't know I was going to McLean. But when I went there, I saw those. I mean, I wanted to live. Once I was sort of unburdened with it, I'm like, okay, good, let's go. I don't want to sit around here. Let's go. And there are people there that need to be there. People there, good people. The nurses and the doctors were awesome. But there are people there who need
anyone we know there, you see? Anyone that we would recognize?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah? Oh, good.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Give us names off the air.
Plenty.
Was anyone afraid? Because they know how candid you could be, that maybe Kirk might.
From the patients?
Yes.
Doctors,
nurses?
I don't know. I would say with all due respect to the patients, I don't think they had any idea that's there in their own world.
Security guard.
Security guard, a
Name it.
couple of nurses, a couple of doctors. They're all very nice. Yes, I
Is
didn't
it
know.
like Cuckoo's Nest, or is that a little?
When I was there in '93, not in McLean, but when I was at '93, that was still Cuckoo's Nest. I spent the first night in a room with like padded walls. The first night observed, and that's why I was scared to go back to a place like this. I was terrified Thursday night, absolutely terrified. But it was not. It was like the problem with McLean's is there's no problem, but it's an older. The buildings are old,
Right.
so it's kind
It's
of
like Shutter Island.
right. But they have tried to upgrade it to meet with the times. They're not quite there yet. I'd say they're like 10, 15 years behind in terms of how. But it was not. Everyone was great. It was But I mean, the doors were open. They checked on you every 5 minutes all night. These are real. This is a real thing. So yeah.
Nobody's saying it's not a real thing.
No. I'm saying that.
You're a little defensive.
What do you mean?
No one's saying it's not a real thing. No, except for a couple of texters. No one's calling you a puss.
No. I'm saying that when you're at McLean,
Okay,
like,
more
that's
than a couple
the-
texters.
It's the real deal.
I'm sure it's
Yeah.
world renowned.
Yeah.
Isn't
right.
it?
Yeah. I think so. I don't know.
I
got
think
sent
it is.
there.
I believe it is. You said the other day, a couple of weeks ago, you'd never been there, which surprised me because it's
I never
A,
been
it's
there.
in your neighborhood, and B, it's
5 minutes from my house.
Half
full
the
of,
show has been there now.
full of psychos.
That's a good point. I've been there 3 times or whatever in the last week. I'd never been there in my life.
Yeah.
Ever.
They serve beer.
There's no beer there. I'd say the food is not great.
The food's
I was
not great.
not overwhelmed with the food. I could have fasted there.
I was
pretty
going to
easily.
say, a picky eater like you, did you find anything you
Chicky
liked?
fingers?
Jello? How's the Jello?
These French fries aren't hot
Some
enough for
food
me,
was
sir.
brought to
How's
me
the
today.
oatmeal?
The waffles were a little dry. They were a little dry.
It's a good time for a 24-hour fast.
That's a good point.
Purge.
So you talk about everything on the air, obviously. Was there any point where you're like, maybe I shouldn't, this is
Absolutely
not something I want to talk
never,
about on the air?
Never.
This takes some balls, I
Never.
think.
Does not. No, I don't
Talk
think-
about it openly? I think
Yes,
it
it
does.
does.
I think it
so.
does. I think
This
it
is what
does.
we do.
I wouldn't do it.
I would say that when I did especially the podcast last year, I talked to both my parents. I got so many emails from people, and some people said it really helped them. And I'm not going to go in the cliche world here, but this is a real thing. And I think guys our age, depression still has a stigma of being sort of feminine and emasculating, and that's not the case at all. Absolutely not the case at all. So if a couple people are going through it, hear this and feel a little better and say, what, I'm not going to skip that therapist appointment today. I will take those pills today. Great. Awesome. And by the way, I think it's interesting, and I think people care about me and care about the show. So we talk. That's what we do on the show.
Absolutely.
And put it this way, it never crossed my mind not to talk about
So,
it.
excuse-
Ever.
okay.
Well, it has in the past when you think about it.
What do you mean?
You said you've hidden
Oh,
things
yeah,
and
yeah.
suppressed them.
Sure.
Once you admitted to yourself and admitted yourself in, that was okay to talk about in the air.
Yeah.
We had lunch Thursday, and I told, I think Zarbano, I think I told your wife this too, that you were never, I shouldn't say never, rarely as level-headed as you were reasonable.
Post
Because we were, at the lunch,
right.
not the meeting. Of
Right,
course, you were a
right.
little baby in the meeting like you always are. But at lunch, you were very reasonable. We talked about things we have to do going forward.
Yeah, which
And
I still think is right.
Yeah, but you were good.
Yeah, I felt okay. Yeah, I mean, even within the days, you go up and you go down. But I mean, that was 6, 7 hours before.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, I don't know. The meeting had nothing to do with it. It happened to be the same day, but it had nothing to do with it.
I know. I'm just saying you were very, reasonable and rational. Dare I say, sane at
Thank
that
you.
at
That's nice of you to
Thursday
say.
at whatever that was, 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock.
That's a nice thought. Thank you.
A couple hours later, you're walking down the railroad tracks.
6 or 7, much later, 6 or 7 hours.
If you laid down on the tracks, did you think the train
I thought
could
I
just
did
go
plenty
over
of research
you?
on laying down on the tracks. I had no interest in doing that.
But if the train goes over you, maybe you'd be like, you'd be like George Bailey. You'd say, "Wow, I want to live. I want to live."
I never thought of it that way.
Yeah. Do you-
And I don't know why. I can't explain why trains became this thing.
Oh, I can, because it's a sure thing. It's a sure thing. Did you see Margot Kidder killed herself
Yeah.
with an overdose of alcohol and pills?
But it's also a sure thing that I could climb up to the top
Margot
of
Kidder?
slowest lane.
Okay.
I could climb up a 50-story building, jump off, and that's a sure thing.
Sure.
I mean, there are other sure things.
There
I
are-
mean, but you'd be surprised
It's
how many.
hard to do a 50-story building, in Lexington.
Well, whatever. But you drive to Boston. I thought about bridges. That's the other thing I thought about.
I always wonder. I've gone over the Tobin Bridge when it was Charles Stewart did. Was he sure that he was going to die?
No, that was the thing. I would say no.
You hit water. It always feels like. Did you see that girl who got pushed off
Yes.
the 60-foot
Broke
thing?
5 ribs, but survived.
Her friend pushed her
Right.
off a 60-foot thing. She broke 5 ribs?
Yes.
Did she?
yeah.
And plus, she lost a friend.
Well, maybe not.
But
Video went viral, though, Jared.
I don't care how high it is. If you're landing in water, it feels like you could survive. And could there be anything worse than surviving and being paralyzed? Knowing that you
No,
failed and
no,
knowing that you
no.
probably aren't going to have
But here's
another
the thing.
chance?
Most of those attempts fail. A great
What attempts? Not the
suicide
ones where you
attempts.
jump in front
no,
of
no, I'm saying
trains.
suicide attempts in general. Most fail.
But that's why you step in front of a train.
Correct. Though that success rate of that is high.
Right.
It's like 99.7 or something. It really is. I mean, it's like,
So there's 0.3% who survive trains?
yeah, I'm sure it's,
What's the success rate of, like, hanging yourself?
not great.
It seems strange. Like,
And shooting yourself, not great.
Not great.
Well, 'cause I think a lot of people at the last second, there's stuff like that,
That's why you're supposed to put it in your mouth, right?
Right.
You
Yes.
know, you're an expert.
Yeah, I didn't
Done your
guns,
research.
guns is not my thing.
Well, if you had one, it might be a thing.
Right, but I'm not a gun guy.
You'd have to, like, borrow one
Right. I don't even know if I can get a gun now.
on the street.
Ooh.
Probably.
I know
can.
places.
I
I know
probably- I
people.
probably can.
Oh, you,
I know people.
You got a friend at the Globe who's on suspension right now. He can get you a gun.
That's true.
That's true.
Call can get you a gun.
Call could hook you up.
That's true. But I mean,
Did you ever think, and I probably didn't, it's just another dumb question, of all the people that would be happy if you did what you thought
no,
about
that
doing?
didn't cross my mind.
That doesn't?
No.
I mean, because you're very competitive. You know,
Right.
they win if you do
I'd
it.
say it's a short list, though. If people would be truly happy. Happy.
I mean, it's a short
I think
list.
people.
but-
I think the happy to see me fired. That's a long list. Happy to see me commit suicide with kids is a shorter list.
yes, but those people
But they
win.
exist. Oh,
Oh,
yeah.
there it is. We're watching her. Oh, that is so
That is crazy.
disturbing. I mean, I've got some a-hole friends, but I don't have anyone I think would push me off a 60-foot cliff
But I like
for
the
laughs.
list. Well, who do you think will be on that list?
You know the people, the
I'm
usual
very old
suspects.
Right.
Yeah, people. Yeah, him
I
maybe.
don't care about them. I don't care about. Right.
Well, the guy you used
Yes.
to care about. I'm
Oh,
glad
I still
you don't,
care about them, but
I'm glad you're not going to let him get to you
but I don't
anymore.
find it. But I don't find it productive. Do you?
Of course not.
Right. So
Lots
I'm
of things
done.
we do aren't productive.
Right. So he can continue to try and bring us down, and that's absolutely fine. Good luck. That's what I'd say.
Yeah. Me
Great.
too, I guess, because
I
you
mean-
don't have any control.
Right. We have none.
think
People who really
no-
matter up top don't have our backs on it. So that's it.
I'm no shrink, but I think the lack of control is what drives you nuts.
Yes, that's exactly it.
Because I feel the same way. There's nothing you could do.
Nothing.
At least not within the law.
And it's not like I said. The wires were already screwed up, and I just moved them somewhere else. That's
Right.
all. That's what happened.